The city is finally asleep. Streets that pulsed with movement just hours ago now lie frozen under the dim glow of passing cars. A single apartment window still flickers with light. Inside, someone sits in the dark, phone face down on the table, the last song paused mid-verse. For a long moment, there's nothing, no alerts, no conversations, no hum of distraction, just silence. But silence, strangely, doesn't feel peaceful. It feels alive, as if the air itself is watching. A faint restlessness crawls through the body. The chest tightens, fingers twitch toward the phone again, and a quiet question rises. Why does quiet feel like danger? We spend our days begging for calm. We say we want breaks, peace of mind, a little stillness, yet the moment it arrives, we run from it. There's something unsettling about hearing only your own breathing, about realizing that the noise outside wasn't just keeping you busy, it was keeping you safe. Every ping, every voice, every passing headline builds a wall between you and the one person you never learned to sit with yourself. Modern life is built to make that wall unbreakable. Our attention is currency, and silence doesn't pay. So the world keeps feeding us sound, screens glowing in every corner, music leaking from cafes, timelines that never end. The pace feels normal because everyone's caught in the same storm, yet beneath the rhythm of notifications and plans, another rhythm waits. It beats slower, it asks questions, and it terrifies us because it can't be paused or swiped away. When the noise fades, even for a few minutes, something inside begins to surface. At first it's only discomfort, an itch under the skin, the mind rehearsing small escapes, but stay a little longer, and a voice begins to whisper, not out loud, but from somewhere deeper. It asks things you don't want to answer. Are you happy? Do you even know why you're doing all this? You tell yourself you're just tired, that tomorrow will feel different. Still, the unease lingers, like static after a song ends. We're told loneliness comes from the absence of people, but that's only half true. Real loneliness begins when the outer world goes quiet and the inner one starts speaking. It's not the emptiness of a room. It's the weight of what fills that room, when nothing distracts you. Most people confuse this confrontation with sadness. They call it anxiety or boredom, but what it really is exposure. Without the shield of noise, the self you've been avoiding finally steps forward. Psychologists have long understood this moment. When external stimulation drops, the suppressed mind rises. Memories you pushed away, feelings you buried under schedules, questions you postponed until later. In quiet, all of it returns like dust in sunlight, visible, floating, impossible to ignore. The body reacts before the mind does. The racing heart, the urge to check something, anything. It isn't danger you're sensing, it's truth. And truth is far louder than traffic. We tell ourselves we hate loneliness, but that's not what we fear. What we truly fear is the silence that forces us to meet the stranger behind our own eyes, the one who knows when we're pretending, the one who remembers what we've tried to forget. That's why solitude feels like suffocation. It strips away every role we perform until there's nowhere left to hide, so we fill our hours with motion. We call it productivity, we call it connection. We keep the volume up, the calendar full, the world spinning, anything to avoid that moment when everything stops. But deep down we know, it's not the noise outside that's saving us, it's the distance it creates inside. Because when the last sound fades and reflection finally begins, we see the truth that frightens us most. Silence doesn't empty life, it reveals it. And somewhere in that quiet apartment, under the faint glow of a forgotten screen, someone looks up and catches their reflection in the dark glass. They stare for a moment too long. The image stares back, familiar yet foreign. Neither enemy nor friend, just presence. For the first time, there's no audience, no applause, no role to play. Only the question echoing in the dark. What are we really running from? There's a moment in every childhood when we learn the rules of being loved. Maybe it happens when a teacher praises your obedience, but ignores your honesty. Or when your parents smile at your politeness, but turn away from your anger. Slowly you begin to understand, certain emotions earn warmth, others earn silence. And without realizing it, you start to edit yourself. You tuck away the parts that make others uncomfortable, the impulses that don't fit the script. What remains on the surface becomes yourself, and what gets buried becomes something else entirely. Psychology has a name for this, the shadow. Carl Jung described it as the unseen companion we all carry, the reservoir of our rejected traits, the desires, envy, rage, guilt, and longing our conscious mind disowns. We don't destroy these parts, we just hide them. But repression doesn't erase energy, it buries it alive. The more we deny what we feel, the more that hidden part waits beneath the surface, shaping us in ways we can't see. From an early age, society teaches us to master this performance. In classrooms, we're graded not only for what we know, but for how well we behave. In offices, we polish our image until it gleams, confident, capable, agreeable. On social media, we sculpt versions of ourselves that fit neatly into pixels of approval. Every space becomes a stage, every role a costume. Somewhere between being genuine and being accepted, the mask fuses to the skin. But what happens to everything that doesn't fit inside that mask? The irritation we swallow in meetings, the jealousy we deny in friendships, the selfishness, the doubt, the small cruelties that creep into thought but never reach speech. They don't disappear, they retreat, and in the quiet corners of the mind, they start to whisper. The mask smiles, but the shadow watches. You can feel the tension if you pay attention. It's in the polite laugh that comes too quickly, in the emptiness that follows praise, in the exhaustion of trying to stay perfect. We call it burnout, social fatigue, imposter syndrome, but underneath, it's the body signaling that something real has been exiled. The further we drift from what's true, the louder the shadow becomes, pressing against the cracks of our curated identity. Jung once wrote that enlightenment isn't about imagining figures of light, but about making the darkness conscious. To meet the shadow isn't to defeat it, it's to see it clearly. Think of it like bringing a wild animal into daylight. At first it thrashes and resists. It doesn't trust you, and why should it? You've spent years pretending it didn't exist. But if you stay, if you keep looking without judgment, it begins to calm. You realize its claws and teeth weren't meant to harm you. They were its only way to survive your denial. This isn't only a personal struggle. Entire cultures wear masks too. Societies reward traits that sustain their image. Productivity over rest, confidence over vulnerability, optimism over honesty. Whole generations inherit these expectations like invisible uniforms. The collective mask becomes the norm, and those who resist it are labeled strange, ungrateful, even unstable. But behind every smiling society lies a shadow, the unspoken grief, the quiet frustration, the hidden humanity that leaks through when no one's watching. The irony is painful. We think the mask protects us, but it isolates us. Every performance hides the very thing we're searching for, connection. Real intimacy requires truth, but truth can't exist behind disguise. So we build relationships between personas, not people, and then wonder why we still feel unseen. Eventually, the shadow finds a way out, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through anger, sometimes through sudden sadness that seems to come from nowhere. It's the psyche's rebellion, the repressed demanding recognition, and that confrontation, though frightening, is sacred, because only by facing what we've denied can we become whole again. Maybe that's why silence feels so unsettling. Not because it's empty, but because it's crowded, filled with all the voices we've ignored. The real fear isn't darkness, it's illumination. Because once you see who's been living behind the mask, you can never unsee it. And in that realization lies the most haunting truth of all. Maybe the monster we've spent our lives running from was never evil. It was simply the part of us that knew the truth all along. Imagine standing in the middle of a busy street at rush hour. Thousands of people move in perfect rhythm, talking, typing, scrolling, hurrying somewhere important. From above, it looks like life in motion, purposeful, alive. But if you could pause the world for just 1 second, freeze every gesture, silence every notification, and look into their faces, you'd see something else. A vacancy. Eyes lit by screens but not by presence, hearts racing but not awake. It looks like freedom, but it feels like a trance. This is the architecture of illusion, a system designed not to imprison your body, but to capture your attention. It begins early. The moment you open your eyes, the world greets you with a list of who to be, what to buy, and how to feel. Every image, every slogan, every scrolling feed whispers the same message: you are not enough, at least not yet. Advertising figured out long ago that dissatisfaction sells better than fulfillment. So it teaches us to crave endlessly, to mistake desire for identity. The algorithm doesn't want your peace, it wants your pulse. That small spike of emotion that makes you click, buy, react, scroll. In this economy, your insecurity is the most valuable commodity. But it's not just corporations that profit. Politics runs on the same machinery. The more divided you feel, the easier you are to control. Fear becomes currency. Outrage becomes fuel. The constant noise of conflict keeps us from hearing the quieter questions. Who am I beneath all this noise? What do I actually believe? We've mistaken stimulation for life, movement for meaning. The result is a society addicted to activity, yet starved for purpose. We run in circles. Dissatisfaction leads to consumption. Consumption brings a moment of relief. Relief fades into emptiness. Then the cycle begins again. Dissatisfaction becomes the heartbeat of culture. Neuroscience offers a mirror to this cycle. Antonio Damasio's research revealed that our choices aren't born in logic. They're born in emotion. We decide first with feeling, then justify with reason. Which means, if our emotions are hijacked by marketing, outrage, or social validation, our choices are too. We think we're in control, but often it's just the illusion of agency, wrapped in the language of freedom. This disconnection creates a quiet ache, a sense that something is wrong, though we can't quite explain what. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, when the life we live doesn't align with what we truly value. We feel off balance, but blame the wrong things, the job, the partner, the city. So we rearrange the furniture of our lives while the foundation continues to crack. It's not new. Ancient civilizations had their own rituals of avoidance, festivals, distractions of empire and war, anything to escape the mirror of consciousness. Today's rituals are digital. We kneel not before gods, but before glowing rectangles. Our prayers are likes, our confessions are posts, and our temples are feeds that never sleep. The altar is built from our own attention. What began as connection has become noise. The world has never spoken louder, yet said less. We've confused visibility with significance, as if being seen means being known. But behind the filters and slogans, humanity drifts further into isolation. This isn't just a personal crisis, it's cultural, a collective fear of silence, because silence reveals what the system can't monetize: your inner life. Every habit, every notification, every cycle of comparison becomes a brick in an invisible prison. No guards, no bars, just dopamine loops disguised as freedom. We scroll to escape the discomfort that scrolling created. We post to feel alive, but end up emptier with every like. It's not that anyone forced us here, it's that we mistook distraction for safety. And yet, deep down, there's a growing fatigue, a quiet rebellion beneath the constant motion. People are starting to sense the lie. You can see it in the glazed eyes on the train, the late-night restlessness, the desperate need to unplug. The illusion is cracking, even if we don't yet know what to do once it breaks. Look again at that frozen crowd, thousands of faces lit by artificial light. Everyone moving, everyone connected, yet no one truly present. The noise is deafening, but beneath it, the same silence waits. The same question lingers, unanswered. If everyone's pretending, who's left to be real? There comes a moment when running stops working. Not because you decide to stop, but because exhaustion leaves you no other choice. You sit alone, maybe in your room, maybe inside your mind, and realize the noise has finally run out. The distractions have burned away. What's left is the heat of your own thoughts, flickering like firelight in a windowless room. This is where transformation begins. Not in comfort, not in calm, but in the furnace of confrontation. You start to feel it physically first. The shallow breath, the pounding heartbeat, the tightness rising in your chest. It's the body sensing truth before the mind can name it. For the first time, there's nowhere left to hide from what you've been carrying. Fear arrives first. It's not cinematic, it's quieter, more personal. It shows up as the memory you've avoided, the regret you never said aloud, the shame that's lived in your bones. Then comes grief, not just for what happened, but for all the versions of yourself you buried just to survive. Every mask you wore melts in the heat. Every false identity, every performance turns to smoke. You don't control the fire, you endure it. This is the crucible of solitude, the place where distraction ends and revelation begins. Viktor Frankl once wrote that when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But change doesn't arrive gently. It demands surrender. It asks you to watch pieces of your old life burn so something new can take shape. What Frankl called meaning isn't handed to us. It's forged through pain that's consciously faced. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre described freedom as an unbearable weight. He said most people run from it because true freedom means taking full responsibility for the self, for every choice made, every silence kept, every mask worn, and that's what the fire reveals. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's seeing who you really are when there's nothing left to pretend. At first it feels like dying, and in a way it is, a psychological death, the collapse of the false self, the end of the version of you built to please, impress, or belong. There's grief in that, even if it's necessary, because those identities, as limiting as they were, gave you structure, and now that structure is gone, what remains is raw space, terrifying, infinite, and real. You begin to notice your body differently. The shaking hands, the sudden tears, the moments when you want to run, they're not weakness, they're signals of release. Discomfort is proof that the old programming is breaking apart. The silence that once felt unbearable begins to change in texture. It no longer mocks you, it mirrors you. The same quiet that once amplified your fear now reflects your truth. This is how awakening happens, not in a flash of light, but in a slow, steady burn. You learn to sit with the unease until it softens. You learn that feelings don't destroy you, they complete you. Each breath through discomfort is a step toward wholeness. Each moment of stillness is a quiet act of rebellion against the noise that raised you. Then something shifts. The thoughts that once terrified you start to sound different, not like threats but like messages. The voice that once whispered "you're not enough" begins to sound more like "you're not listening." The enemy becomes the teacher. The flame that once burned now illuminates, and you understand with calm certainty that freedom isn't found outside the fire, it's born inside it. You stop seeking escape, because the truth no longer feels like punishment. It feels like air. The world outside hasn't changed, but your vision has. You see clearly now how much of your life was built from fear and how much was waiting for courage. And courage, you realize, isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to stay in the fire long enough to let fear speak. When the heat finally fades, the room is still. The walls are the same, but the person sitting there is not. The masks are gone, the noise reduced to ashes. In their place there's only breath, steady, honest, alive. The silence doesn't frighten you anymore. It feels like home, because now you understand what the fire was trying to show you all along. The voice you feared wasn't your enemy, it was your guide. The night has passed. The fire has dimmed. Outside, a soft light seeps through the cracks in the blinds. The room looks the same as it did before, yet something feels different, like even the air has changed. The chaos that once roared inside you now moves quietly, like water settling after a storm. For the first time in a long while, stillness doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like space. You sit there breathing, letting the silence fill the room. There's no rush to escape it anymore. The fear, the shame, the endless running, they've lost their grip. What remains isn't victory, but presence. You haven't transcended the world, you've simply stopped fighting it. This is what Carl Jung called individuation. The slow, often painful process of becoming whole, not by destroying the shadow, but by embracing it. Every part you once buried, the anger, the jealousy, the longing, the doubt, now stands beside the parts you showed the world. You see that none of it was evil, it was all human. Integration isn't about light replacing darkness, it's about realizing both were always part of the same flame. True peace, you learn, isn't detachment, it's participation without possession. It's walking through life awake, feeling, noticing, responding, without letting the noise decide who you are. You can watch a storm without becoming the storm. You can care without losing yourself. You can be fully present and still remain free. It feels like surfacing from deep water, lungs burning, heart pounding, every breath tasting like something you almost forgot existed. Truth, simple, Clear, unadorned truth. No cosmic revelation, no voice from above, just awareness. You realize how much energy you once spent pretending to be alive when being alive required no effort at all. There's a quiet power in that recognition. Nietzsche once wrote that one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. You understand now what he meant. The chaos was never your enemy, it was your raw material. Without it, there would be no motion, no creation, no depth. The star isn't born after the struggle, it's born through it. You start noticing small details you once ignored. The hum of the refrigerator, the pattern of sunlight on the floor, the pulse in your wrist. Each one feels like proof that life was never waiting to begin. It was happening all along. Awareness doesn't erase pain, but it gives it shape, and shape is what turns suffering into meaning. Alan Watts once said, "We are under no obligation to remain the same person we were 5 minutes ago." The line echoes now with new weight. Freedom isn't about escape or reinvention. It's about permission to evolve, to contradict yourself, to begin again. The self isn't a statue to be perfected. It's a river to be lived. You look outward now with gentler eyes. The people rushing by, the ones still trapped in their own noise, no longer seem foolish. They look familiar. You can see the exhaustion behind their smiles, the quiet panic behind their constant talking, and instead of judgment, you feel compassion. You recognize the ache, because you've carried it too. This is the unexpected gift of awakening. It doesn't lift you above others, it connects you to them. You no longer need to convince, correct, or convert. You simply understand. Everyone is walking the same road in different directions, searching for the same home, and home, you realize, was never a place. It's this stillness, this breathing, this awareness that asks for nothing and contains everything. Solitude was never punishment. It was an invitation. It led you here, to the moment where you can finally sit in your own company and feel no emptiness at all. The sun rises higher. You stand near the window. The reflection that once frightened you now looks steady, alive. There's no mask, no performance, no desperate need to be someone else. Just you, unpolished, human, real. The world outside begins its noise again. Cars, voices, screens, but now it feels distant, almost soft. You're no longer drowning in it. You're simply watching, breathing, being. And as the light spreads across your face, you understand the quiet truth that was waiting all along. You are not the echo of the world. You are the silence it returns to.